Thank Muhammad. He must learn from now. Don't know when we will need him. You should see, we have a video on Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. We have a video on Talha when he was just 3 years old, working on a computer. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذ أخذنا ميثاق بني إسرائيل لا تعبدون إلا الله وبالوالدين إحسانا وذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وقولوا للناس حسنا وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة ثم توليتم إلا قليلا منكم وأنتم معرضون. So here Allah Azza wa Jal telling us more about what happened with the Bani Israel, and you will find that more or less we are like imitating them, we're copying them. The Muslims are more likely to benefit from this ayah correcting themselves. Unfortunately, many of them say, oh, the Jew are like, no, it's the ayah for you. Because the Jewish people are not going to read the Quran. You're not going to read the Quran. So the idea of us taking this, that we correct. We see what they have done right, we carry on doing right like them. And what they have done wrong, we avoid the wrong. وَإِذْ أَخَذْنَا, Allah Azza wa Jalla talking about him, took a covenant from the children of Israel. Mithaq comes in 2 ways. Mithaq, ordinary mithaq, and mithaq ghalidh. ميثاق الغليظ who Allah Azza wa Jalla took ميثاقا غليظا from?
Scholar? No.
Another guess?
The 70 who went to the book.
ميثاقا غليظا. From the prophets and from the husband and wife and from the sons of Israel. The 3 mithaq ghalidh. It's like, Solomon covenant, he told here. Ghalidh is very powerful, very strict, that you should never break this covenant. And between husband and wife, Allah Azza wa Jalla took mithaq ghalidh, Solomon covenant, because you marry your wife by permission from Allah Azza wa Jal, and there is no way you are allowed to expose the secrets between you and your wife and you and your husband, whatever that take place between the 2 of you inside the closed doors. So because it's ميثاق غليظ. وقد أفضى بعضكم إلى بعض. أفضى comes from the word فضاء. أفضى يفضي فضاء. فضاء means, what فضاء means?
Space.
Space, outer space. Vast. I mean, they're saying now there is jam in satellites. There won't be jam in the satellites because it will be massive space there. And there's no limits between the husband and wife. And because there's no limits, the government has to be very strict, very solemn, very well observed and controlled. And Allah Azza wa Jal took mithaq from the prophets. وإذ أخذنا من النبيين ميثاقهم ومنك ومن نوح وإبراهيم وموسى وعيسى ابن مريم وأخذنا منهم ميثاقا غليظا. Again, Allah took from the 5 prophets of Resolute. There are very strong governance with them, and Solomon government, and has to be highly respected and observed. And Allah Azza, is why they are called the Ulil Azm min al-Rusul. Nuh, Ibrahim, Musa, Isa, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam took from أخذنا من النبيين ميثاقهم ومنك Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So ميثاق الغليظ. And also when Allah Azza wa Jal leaned the mountain on top of the Jew, either you believe or you crush to death, and they agreed to follow this mithaq covenant, and one of it that I shouldn't work on Saturday. They should respect Saturday. And subhanAllah, when you go to East, when you go to London, there's places for the Jewish community. What's called that?
North London.
Yeah, North London, Hackney, and there's another one. There's
Mill Hill.
Golders Green.
Mill Hill.
Golders Green, and there's a third one, East something.
Finchley Road.
Finchley Road and thing. And I went there on Saturday, not a single shop open in the 21st century in Britain, because many of them also, especially the Orthodox Jew, they will not work on Saturday. And from Friday sunset to Saturday sunset. And that's still there, afraid the mountain will drop on them. But that's the strong governance he took from them. So وإذ أخذنا منك وإذ أخذنا من بني إسرائيل وإذ أخذنا ميثاق بني إسرائيل. So, and then he details what are in the government, what are inside this signed contract with Allah Azza wa Jal. Bani Israel, again, the sons of Israel. And they should be really happy that Allah Azza wa Jal give them as an example of a nation, because they have a certain rule, certain set of practices that kept them. It's kept them until now, like one religion, one community. Allah ta'buduna illallah. You don't worship but Allah Azza wa Jal. And obviously worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal is obeying Allah. If they don't obey Allah Azza wa Jal, they don't believe in Allah. And you will see later that when they break the covenant by not obeying Allah Azza wa Jal, they will be considered kuffar, unbelievers, and they will go to hell. Allah ta'buduna illallah wa bil walidaini ihsana. So the second to be not only good to your parents, because the farad وصينا الإنسان بوالديه حملته, we advise the human and the man, the son of man, to look after his mom and dad. But ihsan is above the farad. The farad to look after them, ihsan to go another mile, to be really caring for them and respecting them and looking after them. And one of the things which the Muslims have to look into, which they don't, unfortunately, in many Muslim countries, they don't look into what's happening in the 21st century, what sort of help the parents need, and how you plan for it. Because you plan for it, it's like if you are in Egypt, let's say, or Syria, and you go to work in Saudi, or you go to work in Turkey and things, and your father and mother have only you, and you know there is nothing called elderly care in the country there. So what have you planned when they are still young? What have you planned as a father, and what your children planned for their father? And there is no genuine plan. Like some people buy a flat in the 5th floor and there's no lift. It's okay when he bought it when he was 40, but when you are 60, 70, and your knee is gone, your strength gone, how are you going to take a shopping up there? I mean, my niece, my wife's nephew, they live in the 7th floor. Hakim?
No, 14.
14.
Oh, no.
And
if he doesn't pay for the electricity, he wouldn't be able to use.
In Turkey it's about 7th floor.
But Sham
is about 14th floor.
Aziz, 14th floor. And he is still 30 years old and he can't take his shopping and everything on the stairs because there's no electricity. The generator run on diesel and they have to buy the diesel. If you don't share, you don't use that. So I said, put the food in a basket and ask your wife to drop the basket. You put the food there and so there's no plan. What about when he's 60 or 70? So you need to be really in advance planning for yourself as a parent and your children to plan for their father as a parent. Now, one of the things they do, I met one of my patients, they said they downsized. They were living in a big house and they downsized to 5-bedroom house. I said, oh my God, what sort of house you're living in? There's 13 bedrooms in there. So they downsized. Usually there's mushrooming flats in Britain, in Solihull, for elderlies everywhere. Why? Because people realize that I am going to be older, I can't drive, I have to live nearer to a shopping center or nearer to a supermarket. I have to use a place where there is a genuine lift, and I have to have this facility, and they plan for it. And I saw a patient in Knoll. They sold their 5-bedroom house and bought a flat, and they have to top it up. The flat was more expensive than the house. And even the plan wasn't correct because his wife was dementing. So his plan should have been seeking advice from others. So, بالوالدين إحسانا, the Muslims are unable to do the fard service. What about doing the extra mile and going plan in advance? A year in advance, 10 years in advance, 30 years in advance. Because that's what I personally would prefer to move to a flat. Now, I'm still not keen on it. But we had the flat and ready, and we need to move to it. She said no, she blocked it. She wanted to stay in the house. But you need to have a stair lift. Said no, I'm not going to put a stair lift. If you sit in a basket, I will pull you out. بالوالدين إحسانا. So you need, not randomly. I had the patient in Solihull who was shifted. The family were very keen, very caring, good Muslims. They want to look after, I think it was mom. They want to look after mom, all of them. So 2 weeks in this, 2 weeks in there, 2 weeks in there, 5 houses. And when somebody is dementing, if she had scored 25 or 23, let's say, below 25, she starts, getting demented. She goes to the house of, let's say, Mary, she loses 3 points. She goes to Zainab, she loses another 3 points. And she go to Ali, and then by the time she comes back home or comes to the first one, she becomes severely demented because every time she moves, she loses some of her orientation. So when she comes back to the first daughter, she doesn't know where the kitchen is, where the loo is. So you might not find the loo. By the time she's trying to find the loo, she loses control. And so I said, look, either one, look after her, or you put her in a home, or we will take her against your will to a home. So when you look into Walidain Ihsana, it has to be in keeping with the latest needs and the latest services. Or the father could be in Solihull and the son took a job in, like we met a family, we're looking here, their daughters might, one of my sons marry her, and they live around 4.5 hours from here north. And one son lives in Wales and one son lives in London. If they want to come and visit the 2 sons, it has to be over 2 days. So how are you going to help mom and dad if you're so far and so far away? And you end putting them in a home. Home means they have to sell the house, so your inheritance gone. And they try to block the residential home or nursing home because they want to keep the money for them. When mom and dad die, we get something inherited. And look at the psychodynamic between the family and social service and the hospital. This is why they're blocking beds now, because they're not moving them to. Still your problem there, isn't it? They're blocking the bed. They can't move them to unsafe environment, so they can't admit the new admission because the older one is blocking the bed. Used to be charging them £100 a day. Is this still the problem?
Well, if not necessarily from the beginning, but if it becomes a problem, then you send a letter and you send another letter and then you start charging.
That's social service, £100 a day. So, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا to us has to be really studied and researched. And many families could be making, I went to see a father and nobody at home to open the home. He's very demented, and I looked from the window, he's totally naked, sitting on the bed. He doesn't know where he is, what he's doing. I'm not sure whether he had food or not, or drink. And the daughter-in-law working, and the son-in-law working, and the son is working, and the dad left at home, locked door, and they left some sandwich or something. So I said again, it's not on, we have to take him out. Unless one or you employ. The best one I came across is a GP whose mom and dad were dementing in Dulwich, and he employed a living-in carer, very well trained, and she looked after mom and dad, and they gave her £2,000 a month, plus food and drink and things and accommodation. And she came from Vietnam, I think, that lady. A similar one in Kenilworth, again in Solihull, and the mum was Alzheimer dementia. The father was vascular dementia, and she woke up at night at 2 o'clock and she found this lady with her husband. Why are you sitting with my husband? How dare you are in my house? Chased her out of the house in the rain, in the cold, and the lady went outside. And so the living-in carer became a nightmare, and no carers will come because this lady will chase us away. So we have found an answer to that, but there's so many complications. So when you look into Muslims expected to be good to their parents, you need to look into what the parents needs, what the children can afford, and you say, no, yeah, you will get the Rida al-Walidain. Allah Azza wa Jalla will not punish you for not looking after mom and dad, but if you look after your mom and dad, will get worse. So you better actually hand to experienced people and over 3 shifts, because when you want to look after mom and dad 24/7, 365 days a year, beside your family and your own children, and if it's not working, if she is working, then you will be leaving mom and dad. Some are very good. They bought dispenser for their tablets. So every 8 hours, the dispenser will drop the tablets. Father goes, take the tablets, swallow it. So I went to see a father with the dispenser, and there were a bulk of tablets. I said, what's this for? I don't know. He didn't know what's that for. Because no supervision. They need somebody come every 8 hours. Oh, you didn't take your tablets, take it. But the problem will be if he comes and take the whole tablets in one go. Then we'll be poisoned. Wadi al-Qurba, I don't know what the radius, because Wadi al-Qurba, we seem to be looking after Qurba in Turkey, and after Qurba in Saudi, in Egypt, in Syria. We have so many Qurbas, and they're really in trouble, and you need to look after them. So it was easy when it was Uli al-Qurba next door, in the same street, in the same village, but now Uli al-Qurba are very, and then you don't know whether they're telling you the truth or not. I mean, we help families in Damascus, and I asked my nephew, and he goes with his wife. They interview the family, and they ask, and before they actually give them food basket or something, and people, we don't know who they are, and they claim, and they tell each other, oh, we get food basket, go and tell them. So they go and interview the people, and so they will Qurba, you still have responsibility, and Yatama, and Masakin. And Dhil Qurba, not only financially, you need to look after them also educationally, religiously, like ethical support and moral support, and Masakin. Masakin, Yatama orphans, usually in human, Yatim is the one who lost his dad. The one who lost the animals, the one who lost his mom. Because how do you know the dogs belongs to who? Come here, child. Have you heard of child support agency in Britain? They chase the father to pay the cost of helping, So if you go to the duck collect, and who's their father, come and pay for that. But the human, they find the father, and if he denies, they do DNA, test, and they find, and 10% they are not the father, the mother claim. So Yatama, often who lost their fathers, they are orphans, even if the mother around, because usually the mother is, it's always something called father figure. You need both a father and a mother. One of the problem now we have is that same-sex marriage, and they go and buy a child. They don't buy a child, but they go and convince the authority they can look after the child. So the child lost the mother figure. And if 2 lesbians take the child, we lost the father figure. And the problem is, you don't know the consequences until 20 years pass, or 30 years, and you start getting them to to see the psychiatrist or the psychologist, and then they analyze the situation. They found out they were missing the father figure. The psychodynamic wasn't actually built correctly. So you start anti the things, try to build it back again. And sometimes take the psychologist 5 years, 6 years, try to untie things and then put it back, and might lose the patient halfway through. And I've seen cases when the patient either committed suicide or about to kill himself, because you can't untie. You get somebody who became like a drug addict or alcoholic or a criminal or have so multiple marriages, multiple divorces, so many chasing, and he can't have or hold a decent job. Not all those who live with same-sex have problems, but many without same-sex marriage, when they had multiple boyfriend or multiple husband. I had a patient. I asked her daughter, "Where do you want your mom to go?" They have to choose the nursing home or residential home. It's their choice. So which home? You have this set of homes. Go and visit them and tell me. She said, "Send her to hell." I said, "Why is that?" She said, "She married 8 times. She never looked after us. I was looking after my sisters and this and that." So the multiple marriage she had, like multiple boyfriends, like multiple, the children became more neglected, and sometimes they have to look after each other and things. So she didn't even want to say hello to mom. But being next of kin, we asked her, we asked these people to tell us which home you need to go to. So Yatama, to look after them if the father died because of illness or because he's killed or because of tornado or something. Now the father disappeared. He get married, the wife pregnant, and just he goes. So you get another father and third father, and then you get the stepfather psychodynamic, and so it's becoming so much complicated to go to the pure Islam and apply it. It's not easy, but that's a governance from Allah Azza wa Jal to be good to the orphan and masakin. Miskin, the one who lost the ability and the energy and the skills to work. So he's so miskin. He's sakana, from sakana. Maskan is a house. Sakana, he settled in the house. And miskin settled because he can't work. He can't get enough food, enough money, enough help to the family. So his miskin need help. وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. Say to people always the best possible, in the best possible way. Husna. Husna, as we said, ihsanan and husna, to go the extra mile. It's beyond what's expected, beyond the fard. It's ihsan, the highest level of Islam. And husna. Again, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ. You have to establish the salah. Because the salah is the way to protect you from إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ. Salah will protect you from indecency and disturbed behavior. And don't worry, carry on, find that Allah Azza wa Jal protected you. We will say, Alhamdulillah, I lived long enough and I went through a lot of experience in many countries, in many cities, in many hospitals. And looking back, Allah protected me thousands of times. Without me, even now, Alhamdulillah, that didn't happen. So Salah will protect you. Wa'atu zakah. Zakah, which we really need to go out and spread the importance of zakah. 2.5% will have demolished all this inflation and poverty across the globe, and people hijacking. Like I wrote in my Facebook page to non-Muslim that if banks lend the rich money to build new factories, produce more commodity and products and more services, there won't be inflation. But they take the money and buy a yacht for 500 million. They buy a mansion house for 200 million. They buy a painting for 120 million. How many produce to the general public? Nothing. They go and bury the money in a painting on the wall. 120 million. Could build 10 factories. You could have the chicken cheaper, the meat cheaper, the grain cheaper, the corn cheaper. You would have the clothes cheaper because you have more production. And if the bank respect that, then they kill the inflation. The same with the government. if they go and take the money and invest it in building new factories, new system, new this, new that, they go and waste it on projects which is they don't even finish. I mean, HS2, the costs keep going up and up and up and up, and the same when they build an airport and things. ثم توليتم إلا قليلا منكم. So after all this government, they just forgot it and walked away. The second generation, you need to prove that if you die, fathers did it, grandfather, you're not going to copy them. So you need to go and say, no, I'm not going to copy my father and grandfather. They seem to copy them. No, we have to have our own law. The minute they say we have to have our own law and leave the law of Allah, the minute they are kafir. Because ما كان لمؤمن ولا مؤمنة إذا قضى الله ورسوله أمرا أن يكون لهم الخيرة من أمرهم. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, it's not up to any believer, male or female, if Allah and His Messenger said anything, that they will have alternative choice. There's no alternative choice. وأنتم معرضون. معرضون means they turn their back and gone. And the Arabs say, ورجيني عرض كتافك. Let me see how wide your back is. So it means that get lost out of here. ورجيني show me how wide your shoulders are. So instead of saying get lost, you say, I want to see your عرض كتافك. You haven't picked it up.
I thought it was the opposite.
This is new. ورجيني عرض كتافك means get lost.
I think someone's strong.
Yeah, but it means get lost. I want to see you back. The English will say, show him the door. Yeah, show him the door. Means وأنتم معرضون. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. This